Hello, everyone. Today, we discuss the story of three who died from an overdose of fairy dust. Far from just an anesthesia trick. After an overdose of fairy dust, their death was quite thrilling. In other words, they were practically caressed to death. Coroner speculated that one of the male victims may have undergone a rather unique surgical procedure while alive. His genitals were gruesomely removed by the killer, a truly regrettable masterpiece. Even seasoned Carl shivered after the coroner's analysis, inferring it was a murderous scheme, like a movie villain's. From the bodies, he sensed deep hatred. But with the incident 12 years ago, uncovering the truth isn't easy. The only suspect so far is Charles, the tenant who discovered the bodies. Word is he used to be a nurse but got the boot for overly enthusiastic behaviour and switched to mortuary work. This means he knows how to tidy a body. Charles vanished years ago but kept paying rent. What a penny pincher. It seemed all clues pointed to Charles, prompting the chief to issue an immediate warrant for this invisible man. Oddly, the killer wasn't afraid of being caught, leaving ID of the victims like a tax-fearless rich guy. Aside from the second female victim's documents being a little blurry, the identities of the other two victims were confirmed. At this moment, the chief looked at Philip's photo, feeling DJ currency sign view, and it wasn't coincidence. The chief's professional instincts kicked in, and he suddenly remembered handling a case involving Philip a few weeks ago. Strangely enough, shortly after the report, Philip's wife Maya withdrew the case, claiming he wasn't missing with Sheila. She said Philip was just vacationing with his mistress, but this clearly seemed staged, with the puppeteer hidden. Perhaps Carl and the team could dig out some clues from Maya, but the results left them sorely disappointed. Maya stated she withdrew the case as she received Philip's email 2 weeks after he went missing, saying he had left with his new flame. This sudden turn of events shocked Carl, but Maya quickly sparked some inspiration in him. Carl showed Maya Charles' profile to see if she could find a connection to Philip, and lo and behold, Maya actually struck. She noticed that Charles worked at a women's rehab facility and remarked how many lawsuits surfaced after it closed. Philip happened to be the defense attorney in one of those cases, but with time passing, she couldn't recall who he defended. At least for now, Carl and the team could confirm that Philip's death was likely tied to that rehabilitation center. Back at the precinct, Officer Roos told Carl they'd confirmed the last victim, Rita. However, Roos also remarked he searched records but found none about the rehab facility's public trial. He harbored a faint suspicion that Maya might have misremembered some details, but just at the moment when he had packed everything and was about to leave. He found Charles had an address and bank account in Spain, paying the body-finding apartment rent biannually, like tax evasion. Carl deduced that Charles must have fled to Spain after killing the three victims. Talk about an international spy thriller. They needed to find something that linked Charles to all the victims, but unfortunately the bank account they found had been cancelled. So Carl came to realize that Charles must be aware of the police's intense pursuit of him. The scene then swiftly advances to the following day. Roos and assistant found the link between Charles and two corpses at the women's rehab facility. Turns out, Neat and Rita were former patients, Charles a nurse, but they didn't know his link to Philip. Carl decided to investigate the abandoned island of the rehab facility. It was like a scene straight out of Castaway. There, they met a hefty gentleman who used to work at the rehab and entered that prison together. The hefty guy showed them around, revealing a massive amount of fairy dust being cultivated in a smoking plant. The hefty dude said cuz on the island often use fairy dust as weed, enjoying a flying high. He then led Carl and the team towards the rehab center. The hefty guy explained that the healing place was actually a prisoner twist on the dream rehab. Here, the girls were treated like prisoners under strict supervision of the doctors. These girls didn't do anything wrong yet suffered inhumane tortures. It was truly a horrifying place. Unbelievably, this facility was established by the local government, a dark reflection of history itself. Even after shutting down, the local government never apologized to the hurt girls. What a pure nightmare. The hefty guy added that after the rehab closed, lawsuits emerged but were heartlessly dismissed in court. That's why Carl and the team could never track down any records from the rehab facility, a real cold case. Thus, Carl and his assistant ventured to the National Archives, hoping to find some leads. There, Carl stumbled upon a record about a female victim who sued a doctor named Kurt. whose defense attorney was none other. The judge deemed the evidence insufficient, so the girl's case never made it to court. Oddly enough, the file didn't mention the name of the accuser. Carl gained a few clues, but found them pretty flimsy unless they could track down Dr. Kurt. The scene shifted to the precinct. The chief told Carl Charles had vanished, perplexing everyone. Now there wasn't a trace of him anywhere in Europe. The chief even began to doubt if Charles was still alive. What a foreign wanderer. Although Carl suspected he might be using a false identity, the police had linked Charles to the 3 corpses through Dr. Kurt. However, when the chief heard Dr. Kurt's name, he exclaimed that he knew him, the top fertility expert in all of Denmark. Don't forget to like and subscribe. More exciting content is on the way.